Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow morning, grab your phone, and there's a text from your mechanic. Your car needs an emergency repair, and the bill comes out to $3,000. Right now, in this moment, do you feel a wave of panic? Or do you stay completely calm, knowing you've got it covered? For most people, that scenario triggers real, gut-wrenching anxiety. And here's why that matters. According to Fidelity, a staggering 57% of American adults cannot cover a $1,000 emergency expense. Not $1,000. That's not a car repair, that's barely a medical copay or a broken appliance. More than half the country is one small financial surprise away from serious trouble. That's the reality we're living in. And it's not because people are careless or irresponsible, it's because no one ever taught us the exact number that changes everything. That number? $20,000. A $20,000 savings cushion is the line between financial survival and financial freedom. It's the difference between lying awake at 2 a.m. running worst-case scenarios and sleeping soundly knowing you're protected no matter what life throws at you. In this video, we're going to break down exactly why that $20,000 milestone is so powerful, what the research says about the people who reach it, and step by step, how you can get there too, no matter where you're starting from today. So before we go any further, what's your emergency fund right now? Drop it in the comments below. Whether it's 0, 500, or 5,000, there's no judgment here. Just honesty. Because that number is about to change. Stay with us, because next, we're going to follow a real-world story that shows you exactly what the journey from 5,000 to 20,000 looks like. Let's talk about someone a lot of us can relate to. Meet Alex. Alex is 28 years old, earns about $50,000 a year, and has managed to save $5,000. That's actually better than a lot of people Alex's age. The median savings for adults between 25 and 35 sits right around $5,400. So Alex isn't behind. Alex is average. But average, it turns out, isn't enough. Because here's what average looks like in real life. 1 month, Alex's landlord raises the rent. The next month, a filling cracks and the dentist bill isn't fully covered by insurance. Then the car, there it is again, needs new brakes. Each one of these, on its own, isn't devastating. But stacked together over 6 months. Alex is reaching for a credit card. And then another one. And the balance starts climbing. That's the trap that catches so many people in their late 20s and early 30s. According to Fidelity research, 64% of people in that age group don't have $20,000 saved. And without that buffer, unexpected expenses don't just dent your finances, they send you backward. Every dollar you put on a credit card in an emergency is a dollar that now costs you interest, and suddenly you're not building wealth, you're digging out of a hole. But here's where Alex's story takes a turn. Instead of accepting the cycle, Alex decides to create a plan. A real, concrete, milestone-based plan to reach $20,000. Not someday. Not eventually. With a timeline, with targets, with specific steps. And the research backs up why that decision alone matters so much. Studies from Fidelity show that setting a clear savings milestone, like a specific dollar goal, reduces financial anxiety by up to 40%. Just having the goal. Not even reaching it yet. The act of committing to the target starts rewiring how your brain handles financial stress. So Alex starts by mapping out monthly expenses, finding places to free up cash, automating a portion of every paycheck into savings, and setting quarterly check-ins to stay on track. It isn't instant. It isn't painless. But it's a plan. And plans, as we're about to see, have a very different outcome than hoping for the best. Have you set a savings milestone for yourself? What's your target number? Drop it in the comments, because setting it publicly is one of the most powerful things you can do to commit to it. Coming up next, we're going to look at the hard data, the stark, undeniable difference between what life looks like with $20,000 saved versus without it. Let's get into the numbers, because sometimes seeing the data laid out plainly is what finally makes things click. When you compare households that have $20,000 or more in savings against those that don't, the gap isn't just noticeable, it's staggering. According to Federal Reserve data, households with at least $20,000 in savings see 2 to 3 times higher net worth growth over a 10-year period. For adults under 35, that translates to a net worth of around $43,000 compared to just $15,000 for those without that savings base. Same age group. Same general income range. Nearly 3 times the financial outcome. All because of that one foundational milestone. And it doesn't stop there. Non-savers, people without a meaningful financial cushion, experience 48% higher credit card debt spikes when emergencies happen. Think about that. Almost half again as much debt, just because there's no buffer to absorb a shock. But households that reach the $20,000 mark reduce their emergency borrowing by 30 to 40%, according to research from Morningstar and the Employee Benefit Research Institute. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between staying on track and losing ground every time life gets bumpy. There's also a myth worth busting here, the idea that a milestone like $20,000 isn't really that much in the grand scheme of things. That it's too modest a goal to bother chasing seriously. The data completely dismantles that thinking. 20,000 isn't the ceiling, it's the foundation. It's what gives every other financial move you make a stable platform to build on. And psychologically, there's something powerful about seeing a tangible, specific number. It makes the goal real. It makes the decision-making clearer. When you know exactly what you're working toward, you stop making vague, wishful financial choices and start making intentional ones. Did you know a $20,000 buffer can reduce your debt exposure by nearly 50%? Does that surprise you? Let us know in the comments. Next, we're going to go even deeper into what reaching this milestone actually does to your brain, your behavior, and your long-term financial habits. This part might surprise you. Let's come back to Alex. After months of consistency, of automating savings, trimming unnecessary spending, and staying committed to the plan, Alex finally crosses the $20,000 line. And something unexpected happens. It's not just relief. It's a complete shift in mindset. Research from behavioral economist Hal Hirschfield and colleagues, published in 2011, shows that reaching a savings milestone reduces what psychologists call future discounting by 20 to 30%. Future discounting is our tendency to value things in the present more than equivalent things in the future. It's why we'll spend $50 today even though future us desperately needs it. When you hit a tangible milestone, that tendency weakens. You start making decisions that protect your future self, not just your present comfort. The behavioral ripple effects are just as significant. People who reach meaningful savings milestones tend to strengthen their financial habits across the board. They're more likely to stick with automated savings systems. They're more consistent with budgeting. And their overall financial motivation goes up, not down. It's counterintuitive, but achieving a goal doesn't reduce your drive. It compounds it. The well-being data is just as compelling. Research shows that people who reach the $20,000 milestone report 21% higher financial well-being scores. And for those who push further toward larger milestones, that well-being increase rises to 25 to 34%. These aren't just feeling good about money numbers, they translate into real quality of life. Less anxiety. More focus at work. Better sleep. Fewer stress-related health impacts. The financial milestone has non-financial benefits that are genuinely life-changing. For Alex, the shift is tangible. The low-grade hum of financial stress that used to sit in the background of every day, that constant, what if something goes wrong, worry, goes quiet. And when that mental energy isn't being consumed by anxiety, it becomes available for everything else, creativity, relationships, career ambitions, long-term thinking. How would reaching $20,000 change your daily stress? Seriously, think about it for a second, and then tell us in the comments. We want to hear what it would mean for you specifically. Because here's the thing, $20,000 isn't just a number in a savings account. It's a psychological turning point. But it's also just the beginning. Because once you hit that milestone, the real magic starts to happen, and that's what we're covering next. Here's where things get genuinely exciting. Because we've talked about what $20,000 does for your peace of mind and your financial stability today. But what does it do for your future? What happens when that $20,000 is not just sitting still, but growing? Let's talk about compounding. If you take $20,000 and invest it at a 7% annual return, a conservative estimate based on broad market index funds, over 20 years, that $20,000 grows to $93,000. Without you adding a single additional dollar. You invest it once, you leave it alone, and it turns into $93,000. At a 10% return, which aligns with long-term historical average stock market performance, that same $20,000 becomes $134,000. Still without adding anything extra. Now, let's bring Alex back into the picture. Remember, Alex started around the median savings point for the 25 to 35 age group, around $5,400. After reaching the $20,000 milestone and continuing to invest, if Alex earns a 12% return, which is possible with disciplined investing in higher performing index strategies, that $20,000 grows to $192,926 over 20 years. Think about that progression. $5,000 to $20,000 to nearly $200,000. The $20,000 milestone isn't just a safety net. It's a launch pad. It's the point at which compounding really starts working in your favor, because you have enough principal to generate meaningful growth. And this is exactly why the old myth, 20,000 is too small to matter, is so dangerous. It's not too small. It's the threshold where your money starts doing serious work for you, quietly and consistently, year after year. When you see those numbers laid out, it becomes viscerally obvious why starting matters more than the size of the start. The people who are most financially secure in their 50s and 60s aren't always the people who earn the most in their 30s, they're the people who started earliest, stayed consistent, and let compounding do the heavy lifting. Do you think $20,000 is achievable in your timeline? Reply in the comments with yes or no, and if you're unsure, keep watching, because the next chapter is all about exactly how to get there. Alright, let's turn everything we've learned into a plan you can actually start this week. No vague advice, no, just spend less, platitudes, real, concrete steps backed by research and real-world data. Step 1, track your expenses and find your $500. According to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, the average person can free up around $500 per month simply by auditing their spending and cutting what they don't actually value. That's subscriptions you forgot about, dining out more than you realized, convenience purchases that add up fast. If you can free up $500 a month, you can hit $20,000 in roughly 3 to 4 years. That's it. That's the math. Step 2, automate before you can think about it. For someone earning $50,000 a year, automating just 10% of each paycheck means about $400 per month going straight into savings, before it ever hits your checking account, before you're tempted to spend it. Automation removes the decision entirely. And research consistently shows that removing financial decisions reduces decision fatigue and massively increases follow-through. Step 3, sequence your savings smartly. Start by building a 3-month emergency fund in a high-yield savings account where it's accessible. Once that's in place, begin investing the remainder in low-cost index funds. Vanguard-style funds historically return between 7 and 10% annually. You're not just saving, you're building. Step 4, do an annual review. Once a year, look at your discretionary spending. If you're not on track to hit $20,000, cut discretionary spending by 20%. That sounds more painful than it usually is. 20% of your optional spending is often coffees, impulse purchases, and entertainment upgrades you won't even miss. These aren't revolutionary steps. But that's exactly the point. The people who win financially aren't doing extraordinary things, they're doing ordinary things with extraordinary consistency. Which of these 4 steps can you start this week? Drop your first move in the comments, because saying it out loud makes it 3 times more likely to happen. Let's see what you're committing to. One more chapter to go, and it includes the final insight that ties everything together. Let's bring it all home. We've covered a lot of ground in this video, so let's make sure every key piece lands before we wrap up. $20,000 is not just a savings goal. It's an emergency buffer that means a $3,000 car repair never derails your life. It's a debt reduction tool that cuts your emergency borrowing by 30 to 40%. It's a psychological turning point that reduces financial anxiety by up to 40% and raises your overall well-being by more than 20%. And it's a wealth multiplier, a starting point that, with the power of compounding, can grow into 6 figures over 2 decades without you doing anything extra after the initial milestone. Here's the core truth of everything we've discussed: the gap between people who feel financially secure and people who don't is rarely income. It's almost always savings behavior. It's the decision to set the milestone, automate the plan, and stay consistent even when it's not exciting. You have everything you need to start. The steps are clear. The data backs them up. And the first move is the most important one. So here's our challenge to you: what is your $20,000 plan? Tell us in the comments. Walk us through your starting point, your timeline, and your first step. We're going to feature the top strategies from the comments in our next video, because the best financial education is a community sharing what actually works. If this video helped you see your savings goals differently, hit the like button and subscribe. We've got a whole series coming that builds on everything you learned today. And speaking of what's coming next, our next video is going to tackle the $50,000 milestone, the hacks, the strategies, and the mindset shifts that take you from solid to seriously wealthy. You don't want to miss it. Before we close out, we've got some bonus strategies for you, because if you're already thinking about $20,000, you're probably also ready to think about what comes after. These are the moves that separate people who hit milestones from people who blow past them. First, never underestimate small cuts. $50 a week sounds almost laughable as a wealth-building strategy. But $50 a week is $2,600 a year. Over 5 years, that's $13,000, and that's before any investment growth. Small consistent cuts, directed into savings or investments every single week, are how fortunes are built quietly and steadily. It's the snowball effect: slow at first, then unstoppable. Second, make sure your savings are actually working for you. If your emergency fund is sitting in a traditional savings account earning 0.01% interest, you're leaving money on the table every single day. High-yield savings accounts currently offer between 4 and 5% APY. That's real growth on your safety net, not just inflation erosion. Move your money to a high-yield account and let it earn while it waits. Third, once your emergency fund is solid, transition your investing focus to low-cost index funds. Vanguard-style index funds, as we mentioned earlier, have historically returned between 7 and 10% annually over long periods. Low fees, broad diversification, and consistent returns: this is the boring, reliable engine of long-term wealth building. Now let's bring Alex back one final time. After reaching the $20,000 milestone, Alex continues the habits, the automation, the annual reviews, the index fund investing. Alex begins investing an extra $10,000 annually on top of the original $20,000 base. Over 20 years, using a conservative compounding model, that strategy has the potential to grow to over $350,000. $350,000. From a starting point of $5,000 and a disciplined commitment to one milestone at a time. That's not luck. That's not a windfall. That's the math of consistency applied over time, with the right habits and the right tools. The biggest insight from all of this: small, consistent actions beat large, occasional moves every single time. You don't need a 6-figure salary to build serious wealth. You need a plan, a starting point, and the commitment to keep going even when it's slow. Which of today's bonus strategies are you going to try first? The high-yield savings switch, the $50 a week cut, or leveling up to index fund investing? Tell us in the comments. We genuinely want to know where you're starting. And don't forget, our next video is going all in on the $50,000 milestone, the exact hacks and strategies to reach it faster than you thought possible. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because that video is going to change the way you think about the next stage of your financial journey. Thank you for watching. Now go make your first move.